The home is where the heart is, right? A safe refuge for each of us? Well, maybe not for all of us. Sometimes the home is where the horror is, where the pain is. Over a year ago, I covered a special video called Unedited Footage of a Bear by Adult Swim, and I was so impressed that I decided to view the rest of their catalog. I wasn't disappointed when I came across another deep and disturbing video called OPAL, and I wanted to share with you what I saw. OPAL is a claymation video that covers the life of a girl named, well, Opal. She lives in a happy ideal family but is drawn to the home next door due to strange lights and sounds coming from the attic, and despite the warnings of her parents, decides to venture out and investigate. She makes her way through a dark and dangerous home filled with strange people. However, it soon turns out that this home and its inhabitants aren't as strange as originally believed. It is soon revealed that it's a familiar place that Opal would rather forget. What starts with a happy jingle soon turns into horror, in which the life and psyche of Opal are explored. She attempts to hide in her mind, but reality seeps in. In this video, I'm going to summarize and analyze the video and what exactly is happening to Opal, the true nature of the dark house, and the mysterious light and song coming from the attic. So sit back and enjoy. The video opens with a calm melody, with the camera panning over empty smashed cans, a TV remote, and burnt cigarettes. However, the nice melody is interrupted from time to time with a louder song. In all of these scenes, we see TV remotes, pills, cigarettes, and mirrors. The title screen appears and the doors of the house open. The camera pans out and we see a nice small white house. The calm melody is back and everything seems brighter and more joyful. It is here that we get our first look at the girl named Opal. She seems quite distraught and has her eyes closed, her face crumpled up like a tin can, but she soon opens up and her appearance becomes far more normal. We see 3 other people across the table from her. They appear to be her father, mother, and perhaps grandfather. They begin to sing a nice song for Opal. They tell her that they can see her and that her troubles are a mile away.
We see you, Opal, your troubles are miles away. We see.
But what troubles are those exactly? Could they have something to do with the strange images we saw earlier? Only time will tell. Opal sees a burger before her. She picks it up and begins to dance with it. She dances with it, but for some reason doesn't eat it. Her family cheers her on, but eventually this euphoric moment is interrupted when Opal spots a dark house next door. The top attic seems to catch her attention in particular, the same attic that the opening shot begins in. Sweat begins to build on everyone and fear lingers in the air. This is not a normal house. Something about it disturbs Opal in ways that cannot yet be explained. Eventually the mother closes the blinds and the father begins to sing a song on how she shouldn't focus on the house across the street. Her parents eventually send her to bed, but Opal can't seem to get the house out of her mind. She eventually sneaks out of her room and gets another side of the dark house. Once again, the attic is what catches her attention. There is something about the attic and... The attic explodes into strange heavenly music with mist emerging from it. It sounds as if someone is crying within. But what is in the attic and what is causing all these strange sounds and why is Opal always attracted to it? The sight saddens Opal and she decides to leave her house to investigate. However, when she arrives at the entrance of the dark house, she is startled by bright lights appear from behind alongside a loud bell and Opal rushes inside the house. Once inside, she hears a television and sees a large old man sitting before it. She tries to tiptoe around the house but steps on a wrapper, exposing herself. Of course, one wonders why she doesn't just leave. Perhaps that attic is worth reaching. The man notices her and calls out to her as Claire.
Claire? Is that you? Come here, I need you to bring me my cigarettes.
It seems that he might have mistaken her for someone else. He asks her to bring him his cigarettes. The man wears black shades and appears to be blind as he cannot recognize that there is an intruder in the house. He demands that she doesn't hide them like before, and that she shouldn't try to help someone who doesn't need the help. Opal tiptoes her way toward the man with great fear. The man spits out blood and appears to have a lot of trouble breathing. Despite his short breath, he breaks into perhaps one of the greatest songs ever.
Tell me, why does it sound so easy to breathe on TV?
He notices that Opal smells weird and is strangely quiet and realizes that she isn't Claire, and demands that she leave the house. He attempts to pursue her but falls. Opal makes a run for it but again doesn't leave the house and instead runs upstairs and notices a strange room at the end, the one that probably leads to the attic. The heavenly music and mist return. The attic is special. She walks towards it but is spotted by a man surrounded by mirrors. He doesn't even bother to look at Opal and only sees his own reflection.
Hey! Just gonna walk by without saying hello?
Look at me.
They're going to be kicking themselves. I actually look really good in that. Glad I don't have your ankles though.
His voice becomes strange when he commands her to look at him. He comments on how he would look good in Opal's clothes and disparages her ankles. He apologizes for the comment and mentions how his brain always fixes on those things. Opal tries to leave and the man's voice becomes strange and dark again when he tells her to stay and listen to his problems. The man appears obsessed with himself and believes that the world has treated him wrongly.
Everybody's so mad at me. Like, I'm growing though. Like, why be so negative? Why do people look at me like the way you probably are right now?
He doesn't seem to care too much about who Opal is and displays some narcissistic tendencies. Eventually, the old man reaches the top of the stairs and yells out at Opal. As Opal flees, the man asks her where she's going and tells her that she knows how he makes him feel when she runs away. Once again, the man seems mostly interested in his own problems. He doesn't seem to be too concerned about the old man yelling or anything else happening around him. Opal runs into another room that appears to be falling apart and filled with ripped sheets and empty bottles of alcohol. She sees stairs at the end of the room and the attic window appears in her eyes. It is closed. She begins to once again tiptoe but is grabbed on the leg by a dilapidated woman. The strange woman rises and asks who's there.
Who's that? Claire? You being a person today, huh?
Once the woman spots Opal, she also calls her Claire, even though it appears that she can see her clearly, unlike the other two. However, she does see more than one of her, indicating that this woman is intoxicated or drugged up. She doesn't let Opal go and mentions how goodness exists and that it will arrive if she waits for it.
Goodness exists. If I wait, Claire, and I sit still, it will arrive.
She forgives Opal for awakening her and mentions how she forgives the entire family every night. She asks how things got so bad and mentions that she feels terrible for something, but doesn't finish the thought. She mentions how she and Claire don't live anymore. They survive. It appears that this woman is the victim of abuse and may have even perpetrated some of her own abuse onto others such as Claire. Perhaps that is why she is apologizing. She begins her music number where she mentions how a mother needs a little girl to support her, physically and mentally. It appears that this woman has become dependent on Claire for emotional support. We then see a quick montage of someone calling 911 and someone else getting hit in the face, most likely the man from before with the mirrors. We see a lot of yelling and arguing and it's becoming more apparent that this family is quite dysfunctional and even violent. She drops her bottle and mentions that Claire is just as powerless as she is. To prove this powerlessness, the woman lunges forward to strike Opal.
You're just as powerless as I am, Claire. See?
But Opal manages to escape her grasp and make a run for it up the stairs towards the attic. She slams the door shut and blockades it with a chair. Afterwards, she approaches the attic window and spots a bed on the side. Once at the end, she notices something through the window, something that saddens her. Instead of seeing her small white house, she sees an advertisement for a burger place called Opal. The family members we saw at the beginning of the video appear identical to those on the billboard ad. Right after this moment, the other family arrives and begins to pound on the door. She runs towards the window and bends down. In great distress and fear, she cowers and covers her ears and begins to imagine something else. Before you know it, she's back in the house that we saw at the beginning of the video. And just like in the beginning, we see her crumpled and disturbed face light up and fill with life. It appears that this is a cycle for Opal, or should I say Claire. The mother closes the curtain to block out the house and they begin to sing the same song again about how they see Opal. If it isn't self-evident, Opal and Claire are one and the same. The small white house is the imaginary life that Claire has created for herself in her head to escape her abusive real-life family, the one that lives in the dark house, the real house. The video ends by snapping back to reality with Claire bunched over covering her ears while her family continues to bang on the door, demanding her attention. So this was an interesting video, and the claymation certainly makes it creepier and more unique. Now most likely you realized what is going on in this video, but for those who haven't or want more clarity, this section will delve into the subject matter at hand in great detail. So to start, Claire and Opal are the same person who are living in two different worlds. Claire is in the real dark and miserable world, and Opal is in the disassociated delusional world that Claire has made up in her mind to escape her abusive home situation. The world that is based on a restaurant advertisement in front of her home. In this section I'll go through the video again but explain everything that is occurring scene by scene. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree with my analysis, or whether you noticed something that I didn't. Other than that, let's get into it. To start, we see the camera panning over a TV remote, cans, and cigarettes. This symbolizes the grandfather who spends all of his time smoking and watching television. The cans of beer indicate that the grandfather is also a heavy drinker. Claire most likely doesn't spend a lot of time around him, and therefore these items are all that she associates with him. Next we see mirrors, tapes, and other items that represent the father. The father is obsessed with this image, is surrounded by mirrors, and doesn't see anyone but himself. A most likely narcissistic man who belittles Claire to increase his own self-confidence. A father that reeks of insecurity. Lastly, we see bottles of alcohol and pills. This represents the mother who seems depressed and uses drugs and alcohol to cope. Remember when she said to Claire, people like us don't live, we survive? Well, these items are all that allow the mother to cope with her life. We see that due to her emotional problems, she uses Claire as an emotional crutch to help her, and even abuses Claire to make herself feel a little bit of power. To make her feel like she has control over her, something at least. We see the shot open up by going through the window of the attic to the nice white looking house on the other side. It transitions to a shot of Claire's face crumpled up. This is exactly what we see at the end of the video when Claire gets on her knees in the attic and covers her ears. This scene signifies Claire escaping her reality in the attic and moving away mentally into her fantasy world that she has created as a coping mechanism. Everything in this fantasy world is based on the restaurant advertisement across the street. Claire most likely doesn't even know what a good family is and most likely doesn't see many other families due to her isolated home. Therefore, she just assumes that what she sees in the advertisement is what normal families are like. The family begins to sing and talk about how they see Opal and that her troubles are miles away. The advertisement shows that the restaurant in question is miles away, and this further indicates that Claire has mentally moved away from reality and fully disassociated. We see Opal as Claire's desire to be seen by her family in a positive light as a normal girl, not just someone that they can use.
There she is. That's my girl. Hi, Opal!
The mother says, "There she is." The father says, "That's my girl." And the grandfather says, "Hi, Opal." All these signify something that Claire truly desires. The mother talked nicely and lovingly. The father saw her as, well, he saw her. And grandfather recognized her and said hi. Remember, the mother is cruel, the father doesn't see her, and her grandfather doesn't recognize who she is, and only uses her to get cigarettes. Claire begins to dance with the burger like the girl in the advertisement, but you'll notice that she doesn't eat the burger. We can see that Claire is far skinnier than the girl in the advertisement. This could indicate malnourishment, and it isn't crazy to assume that this family isn't taking proper care of her. Because of this, it could be possible that Claire has never eaten something like a burger before, and generally doesn't know what you're supposed to do with one. She might believe that you're just supposed to hold it like the advertisement shows. You also notice that Claire is dressed and does her hair in a similar way to the girl in the advertisement, once again showing the level of influence that the advertisement has over her life. She continues to dance while her family encourages her. The imaginary father compliments her while in real life he only criticizes her. The grandfather once again says hi, something that he may have never said in the real world. However, even in her fantasy world, she cannot escape reality forever. Her mind always comes back to the dark house and, most importantly, the attic. We see throughout the entire video that the attic is what appears in her eyes. Why? Because the attic is her haven, a place where she can escape her family and enter this other world, the place that brings her peace and happiness. But regardless, her mind closes off the other house and allows her to continue in her delusion. When Claire goes to sleep, we see that she is sleeping on a wooden floor. This is because Claire in reality has moved her bed into the wooden attic. It doesn't seem to have much of a mattress. We see that Claire cannot rest and begins to look at the dark house, especially that attic, as her mind cannot think of anything else. This entire video is Claire just trying to reach the attic, because once again the attic is her physical and mental haven. When we see her look at the attic, we see heavenly music and mist beginning to emit, but also the sound of someone crying and whining. This represents how the attic is both a haven but also a place where Claire still suffers. A place where she escapes mentally but is trapped physically. There is a duality to this space, a battle between reality and fiction, an imperfect heaven. When Claire gets out of the window into the fictional home, we see 4 lights switching off. These are the lights from the advertisement board, the same lights that turn on and scare Claire when she gets close to the front door of the dark house. This turning off and on of the lights again represents Claire traveling between her 2 worlds. When she is in the fantasy, the lights turn off as the advertisement no longer exists, but is instead her new world. When she gets close to the house, the delusion fades away and the lights and alarms turn on to remind Claire that she needs to wake up. This scene is similar to a clock waking you up from your dreams. Her walking in the darkness between the White House and the Dark House is the representation of Claire moving between worlds. The abuse. In this section, I'm going to analyze each family member and their relationship with Claire. More specifically, how they might be abusing Claire. The first person she comes across is her grandfather sitting on his couch watching TV. Claire is immediately scared when she sees him and tiptoes to avoid getting his attention. And when she steps on a wrapper, she cringes. Right from this, we already know that Claire has a great fear of her grandfather. The grandfather asks her for cigarettes, and mentions how he knows that she's been hiding them. It seems that Claire is aware that her grandfather is killing himself and doesn't want to take part. Perhaps it is possible that some part of her cares about him, or maybe she just doesn't want to be involved in someone's demise. But regardless, the grandfather demands that she give it to him. We don't know why the grandfather smokes so much. It could be due to stress that he faces in his own life. It is possible the grandfather has his own demons and doesn't have healthy ways to fight them. Thereby he resorts to addictions to escape and ends up passing his demons to Claire and others in the house. It doesn't appear that the grandfather abuses her physically but more mentally. He makes Claire feel uncomfortable and bad when she is forced to help him with his addiction. We also notice that the grandfather has trouble recognizing her. He may suffer from dementia. Due to this, Claire is tormented when her grandfather doesn't recognize her and begins to treat her as an intruder. This is another reason that she doesn't approach him, as she is afraid of how her grandfather will react. Again, the abuse here is more mental than physical from what we can see. Once she gets upstairs to her father, we see a completely different situation. Her father is certainly the most well-mannered and nicest to Claire of the three, but he certainly has his issues. And we know that Claire isn't all that comfortable around him either. One of the things that we notice right off the bat is that the father is surrounded by mirrors and literally cannot see Claire and only himself. This could indicate that he is neglectful of his daughter and her problems, not being able to see the problems around him. Even if he doesn't abuse her, he certainly wouldn't be able to protect her either, if he can't see her. His main sin could be that he just neglects Claire, and frankly only cares about himself. We also notice that he's obsessed with his image and is very insecure. Right from the beginning, he belittles Claire's ankles and how she wears her clothes. It seems that he gains self-confidence by putting others down. Once again, we see that the abuse is mostly mental and not physical. We also notice that his calm voice is interrupted by a rougher voice when he says, "Look at me, fix it," or "Hold on a second," when she tries to leave. Again, he craves attention and will get angry if he doesn't get it. Throughout this entire interaction, the father constantly complains about his problems, how others don't treat him well, and how he can't get what he wants. He never asks Claire about her own issues or mentions anyone else's. Again, he comes off as self-centered, bitter, and neglectful. However, it seems that the father is somewhat of a victim himself. When we see the scene in which the mother sings, we see that the father trying to call 911 and getting hit in the face. It seems that the father is abused by his wife, and we see that the father is facing failure in his professional life. It seems that this treatment has led him to seclude himself from the world and become more and more self-centered. It seems that generational abuse is a common feature in this household. The grandfather and the father have both suffered and are passing on their suffering to the next child. The last parent we come across is her mother, and it seems that the situation is certainly the worst. The mother grabs her by the leg and holds her, the only parent to touch her physically. We notice that her vision isn't clear and we see many empty bottles lying about. She's an alcoholic and most likely a drug addict as well. The mother despairs about her life and talks about how goodness will arrive for her eventually. She mentions how she forgives the entire family. One of the interesting lines is when she asks about how things got so bad, and how she feels terrible for all the things. Her sentence cuts off, but we can be led to believe that she is about to admit to the terrible things that she has done. But she refuses, as it is apparent that she views herself as the ultimate victim, just like the father. She further mentions how she and Claire don't live, they just survive. Now, we aren't sure about what abuse she suffers exactly, but it seems to be affecting her the worst out of everyone. Notice that her speech is the most tiring and she looks quite disheveled. Regardless from her song, we can learn that she has become dependent on her daughter for emotional support and care. She seems to be dumping all of her problems onto her daughter and using her as a punching bag to help herself. She mentions how Claire is just as powerless as she is and goes in to hit her, the only member of the family to expose Claire to physical violence. Her abuse is both mental and physical. I would conclude that the mother is the worst of the three. Claire escapes her and runs to the safety of the attic, before she once again becomes a victim. Conclusion. In the end, we learn that the life that she lived at the beginning of the video was fake and was instead based on an advertisement that she saw across the street. She began to dress like the girl in the ad and makes up an entire imaginary world to escape the pain of the real one. But even in her dreams, the addict calls to her, and it paints itself as her heaven, because it is the closest thing that she has to any peace or comfort. We also see a scene in which the grandfather's eyes become clear. This could signify how he cannot see Claire. The father's reflection appears to be Claire, and this perhaps shows how her father is obsessed with judging her looks and never sees her for herself. For the mother, we see her pill turn into Claire. This shows how she uses Claire to support her emotionally. She's essentially a drug for her mother. In the final shot, we see that the camera zoom out of her brain to the family outside banging on her door. Now, I have to admit that this video is one of the most depressing ones that I've seen on Adult Swim. When I first started this project, I thought this was going to be about horror or something like that. Instead, it was much worse in many ways, especially when you consider that many children live these sorts of lives. It's far more common than you might imagine. Anyway, that's the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and didn't become too depressed. If you could, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.